Very audible slurp there, Deanna.
Yeah, I know, sorry.
What a
Tried to do it
start.
quietly. It made
Oh
so
my
much
gosh.
noise.
How does something happen every time? Oh, that was too good.
Yeah,
Oh
ready
my
to go.
goodness. Yeah. Every time I think there's nothing new that can possibly happen, something absolutely does.
Okay, here we go.
Everything is content. Everything is content.
Hello and welcome back to the Good Talkers podcast. We are so stoked to have you with us here today. As always, I am joined, oh my God, stumbling on words.
Always, I will
Always
stumble
me.
over the intro.
As always, I will
What's she
stumble
doing,
over-
Ashton? Ashton, what's she doing?
She's pulling a Tessa. That's what we call it.
We can't make that public. Otherwise, people are going to say it all the time. I don't want
Catchphrase.
It's a thing.
They just did a Tessa.
You love it, actually.
Oh,
On the
I just
inside,
did
you're
a
like,
Tessa.
fuck yeah.
I like the attention. It feels good on my system. As always, everybody, I am Tessa Livingston and I am joined by the incredible Ashton Haugen.
Hello.
Hello, hello. And the fabulous Deanna Cooney.
Hello.
And with us, as always, keeping us on our toes is the fabulous producer Jordan.
Producer
18. That is me.
Hey. It is so good to have you all with us here today. Now, today we are talking about scripts. Now, I know that as voiceover artists, as performers, as actors, scripts are our guidelines. They give us so much information on what we're going to be doing, how we're going to be doing it, and what we need to do with it. Did that sentence make any sense? I feel like
Yes.
it might have. Yeah, made
Mostly.
sense. Mostly,
Yeah.
kind of. Nah, that's all good.
Carry on.
Carry on. So today we are talking about scripts and what it is like to break down a script. Now, as new voice actors, it is really easy to make some first off the bat mistakes. And that's what we're going to be talking about today and how we can start shifting those mistakes to start getting us better at our craft and better at breaking down a script.
Yes.
Now, for Deanna, I know that you are a very incredible vocal coach and scripting coach and voiceover coach. Yeah, you sit there and look impressed.
Like that sounded amazing. Just say some more of that.
Say some more of those things. What is a thing that when you start working with a beginner, what is
Yeah.
the first thing that you start hearing a beginner do that's like classic mistake number one?
Yeah, well, really, the thing that everybody does is they fail to convert written text to spoken text. And they're really, really, really different. So the written word has certain grammatical structures around it that don't work when we speak them, you know. And a perfect example of that, like, is brackets. How do you say brackets?
Right. That makes
Right?
sense.
There's no verbal representation for open bracket, closed bracket other than those words. And we're not going to do that. And sometimes we find scripts when they come to us have those written conventions in them. You know, maybe they have a dollar sign, right? How do we say dollar sign? Do we say the word dollars? Do we say bucks? Do we not say it at all? Do you know what I mean? Like, do you do a colloquial version of dollars? Do you do a formal version of dollars, or do you completely skip it, right? There's a bunch of things that you've got to look at inside of a script and convert them from that written structure. The grammar, the syntax, the prosody of it has to be converted to the spoken word. And it is things as like kind of clear as brackets, or like, does that comma really belong there?
Yeah.
But really, it's also about rhythm and comprehension at the other end, because we can read words that are written down in our head and comprehend them really clearly. But if we say them the way that they're written, often it impacts the comprehension for the listener. And you have to remember that the listener doesn't have the words in front of them.
Oh,
right?
that's so
they don't have the
interesting.
format. They don't have the structure. All they have is the stuff coming out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Right? So it's really lots and lots of people read as the written structure suggests that they should read, but actually you have to change that. You have to, and to do that, you have to say it out loud, right? And that's really your key. Say it out loud. If it sounds fucking weird, it's not in written, it's not in spoken grammar, right? Say it out loud to somebody else. And if they're like, oh, that sentence didn't quite make sense, I don't know why, but it was weird, then you're just not speaking in spoken grammar. You're speaking in written grammar mostly.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I had a job just recently where a script was quite long form and it was written by a writer. And I tell you what, I'm not the best reader in the whole world. I didn't read much as a kid. It wasn't my favorite thing to do, but I can read relatively well, and I speak pretty clearly. And I stumbled over everything because it was just not written for a speaker. So that's really interesting to kind of have that really validated.
Yeah, and look, it happens a lot in voiceover. It's really different. Actors come into voiceover and they're like, what is this weird writing that I have to read, right? And so they fall into a very formal way of reading because they're used to reading scripting, like scripts for actors. And they're written as dialogue, right? They're written as spoken word. So actors look at those scripts and go, oh, this makes complete sense to me. I can just read the words as they are, essentially. Like, you've got to change things and add things and do all the emotional stuff and the subtext and all that kind of thing, right? But the structure of the language is written to be spoken, yeah? But people who write voiceover copy are people that work in advertising or own businesses or, they're not writing for it to be spoken. The really good ones will say it out loud as they're writing it and make sure that it can be spoken. But most people, when they're writing stuff, don't think about that. They just fall into their habitual form of writing, which is using that really well-ingrained written structure.
Right. I feel like it's a really good point to say that, like, I feel like actors who don't traditionally come from a voiceover background have an easier time trying to jump into something like animation or something that's very character heavy because it is written more like a script. But if you're going to jump into something like we're talking about today, commercial, corporate, even all of those things, it is so written so differently than what you would traditionally see anywhere else in life, basically.
Well,
Yeah.
Actually, I would say that it's actually more like how you'd see everything written in most of life, but not as an actor. So in acting world, right, everything that comes to you is written to be spoken. But outside of that context, and to be honest, that's where like most of the voiceover work that we do lives, right? Only a very small part of the voiceover work that we're exposed to as voiceover talent, well, maybe not exposed to, but is available to us as voiceover talent, only a very small portion of that is character work. The vast majority of it is not character work. It's narration based or it's storytelling or something like that, right? On like it's audiobooks or even in advertising. It's really actually kind of rare that we find stuff that's specifically written as a character, right? Most of the time you're a spokesperson for a company or you're narrating something for an organization. And all of that is written by a writer, not by a dialogue writer.
Right.
So you have to do the conversion. You absolutely have to.
Yeah. That's because we say it all the time, don't we? Like, I don't know, like whenever you're doing coaching or anything like that, the first thing the coach says to you, get it off the page. Just get it off the page.
Yes. But what the fuck does get it off the page mean? Saying it out loud is get it off the page.
Yeah, getting it off the page by putting it in your mouth and letting it come out just to give it a go, just to get it feeling inside your mouth so that you can get things moving. Now, talking from personal experience, because, I'm always working on my craft and my skills as well. I remember one of the first things that I got told was that I'm stressing the wrong words. And I would stress words like and. Or they would, and I got told that when I was doing acting as well. And then I was so pissed off when it followed me into voice acting. I was like, this is not fun. So, that's something that I feel like lots of beginner voiceover artists might end up doing as well. And it's a really natural thing that we do in our natural spoken language. So, any thoughts on how a voice actor can begin to start moving off of that stressing that isn't going to be helpful for the copy or the script?
Yeah, totally, right? So there's a couple of things. You need to work out what the story is. Like, what story are you telling?
Right.
And what words tell that story? So and is a really interesting one. I find and pronouns super interesting. People always land on and, like they're selling another fucking set of steak knives, right? And they always land on pronouns, right?
Yeah.
Right? That heavy and, that's a set of steak knives that's coming your way, right? That's just like, and this, because it's a more thing.
Yeah.
But and doesn't always represent more. And sometimes it's just a joining word and you need to throw it away, right? Sometimes there's a more important word in that sentence. And when you stress and, you don't get to stress the other word, right? I'll give you an example, right? I've got a sentence sitting in front of me, and this is from a particular script, and I'll stick it in the show notes so that you guys can play with this as well if you want, right? So the sentence is, membership includes 25% off day passes for family and friends and free entry for children under 4. Right?
It's a big old sentence.
There's 2 ands in there, okay? There's membership includes 25% off day passes for family and friends and free entry for children under 4, right? So the family and friends one could be a throwaway word, family and friends. So you're phrasing family and friends together, or it could be family and friends.
But those tell 2 different stories.
100%. They tell 2 very different stories. And then the and before the second part of the sentence also can be done in a couple of different ways. If we lean on the and, we would say, and free entry for children under 4, right? But we couldn't stress the free, or we'd wind up saying, and free entry for children under 4, which is too much. We lose the meaning of both of those words. So we pick one or the other. We either say, and free entry for children under 4, or we say, and free entry for children under 4.
That's so much fun. Man, that's fun, because there is that whole thing with, what do we call it in acting as well? I'm not playing the end of the script.
Yes.
So like going, okay, well, you need to, you need to work your way to these beats and to these moments. And I've never heard it described like that, because I think naturally when I read things out loud, it has a relatively okay flow to it and it seems to move quite well. But this is where the real skill level comes in, of identifying, okay, well, why did that work naturally?
Yes.
Why was that something that happened naturally? So my question there is how much do you feel a voice actor needs to delve into understanding language, understanding nouns, pronouns, all of these sorts of things? Heaps? Oh, no.
No. Like what I mean is, sorry, what I mean by heaps is you don't have to know what a noun is and what an adjective is, because I forget those things all the time. I'm doing words, the word that makes something belong to something else, but those concepts are actually really, really important. Like, what do the words mean? What are they doing? And what other words do they belong with?
Yeah.
That's all really, really important, really important. So I think it's the better understanding you have of language and its structure and how it works, the better you get at this kind of stuff, and the more instinctive your script interpretation or text interpretation becomes, So I think people should be reading all the time and reading aloud all the time, because that's what builds that particular muscle.
Yeah. And reading aloud is... It's such a skill. It is such a skill. I like I was saying with my one, I felt like I was okay at it. Not too bad. I learned very quickly that actually I need to do a bit more work on that. And it was a really interesting realization. I think for beginning voice actors as well, we stress so much about the idea of making it sound good before we start putting and I still battle with that, because I come from the perspective of voice. I started training with voice. I started knowing how to make sounds and how to, so when I get a script, often what comes into my head first is, what tone do I want on that? And I feel like that is such a massive block.
It's interesting that you say that, because I'm the complete opposite. I came into this from an actor's perspective. And so I was more of, how does it feel rather than how does it sound?
Yeah.
And you really do, as a voice actor, have to marry those two very carefully and intentionally to make something, make a voiceover script sound phenomenal. You got to marry both of those things together.
You definitely do. And it's different with character versus, say, commercial or non-broadcast kind of stuff, right? Because the switch that you have to make, and this is something I have to teach actors all the time, the switch that you have to make is the feeling, like as a character, how do I feel? In commercial, how do they feel? How does the listener feel? And how do we want them to feel? Right? That's the really important question, because you've got to take people on a journey, right? And Tess, you're so right. If you start with how do I sound, you create structure and then you only operate in that structure.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And what that does is close down enormous amounts of emotional nuance. You don't get the granular shit. There's that word again, right?
Oh my God, I love that word.
You just don't get the nuanced stuff because you're locking yourself into something.
Yes. And that's what it does. It happens with me all the time. And it's something that I hear myself doing. So, I'll be doing takes for an audition and giving it a go. And I'll go, okay, this time I want it to sound this way. And then I listen back to the takes and they're literally the same.
Yes.
Because I haven't infused. And it's so frustrating. Like,
Yeah.
they sound good, but they don't sound different. And
I
and
reckon
that's
this
something.
is the bulk of my freaking coaching
Yeah,
space as well. Like, this is what I
absolutely.
spend the most time with doing, with
Yeah.
people doing, like getting them to realize that actually your brain's telling you to do something different, so you understand what that different
Yes.
thing is, right? But then why is it not coming out of your mouth?
Yes.
Why is your mouth not doing what your brain
Right.
is trying to tell it to do?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's somewhere where I feel like I have a huge advantage in knowing all the vocal knowledge that I know. It's wonderful, but I also have a disadvantage in the sense that I have that knowledge
Yeah.
and I can't let go of it. So I'm having to work really hard to start infusing scripts with feeling. With going, okay, I think it sounds like this. Okay, I think it sounds like this. But who am I talking to? This is a commercial script for da 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 da. Okay, I want to talk to my mum about this.
Yeah.
And finding ways for myself, the who, what, where, when, and wrapping that around your brain and then giving it a go. I think that's something that I'm working with lots at the moment to try and expand my range and try and expand what's going on. Does that sort of technique work for either of you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's where
Yeah.
I start. Everything is the
Oh, I love
who,
that.
where, when, what. Because
Before,
that's my
how do I
background.
sound? Before,
Right,
how do
way
I sound?
before,
Way
way
before.
before,
Way before.
way before. That is the first thing that I do. Is I look at I think about who I'm talking to, where I am, looking at all the buzzwords, breaking down the script into beats.
Yeah.
All of those things. That's what I do first because that's my background. That's my acting training.
Yep.
That's what I'm bringing into this. It's just now that I'm learning more of my own instrument, basically,
Yeah.
and how to use my own instrument to back up those feelings, to make it to help the audience feel the things that they need to feel, because I've used my voice properly and stretching myself and giving myself versatility that's outside of what I would regularly sound like. All of those bits are what I'm learning. I learned later and I'm still learning. I feel like the acting part, yeah, like I've been working on that for forever. But the secondary part, that's what I'm working on now.
Yeah. I think what's really cool about that is that it's actually really fun to acknowledge that people come into voiceover from all directions.
Yeah.
And we all come into spaces into these spaces with different backgrounds and different reasons for why we move into things. And it's so important to acknowledge that, at some point you have to go, okay, I've got to learn the other side.
And I think it's not even just but it's not even just the other side. I think the fundamentals of script interpretation apply no matter what background you come from. You bring different strengths that you can add to that. But the actual fundamentals of converting the written word to the spoken word, right? Making it sound like it makes sense and is easy to understand when you say it out loud. Working out where you're going to breathe so that you can support whatever delivery you're doing, right? Working out what words you're going to emphasize in the script. Those things are fundamental script analysis tools. And whether you come from an acting background or a non-acting background, you have to bring those things. You have to learn them, and you have to learn them in the context of the space that you're operating in. So it's different for animation work. It's different for advertising work. It's different for industrial narration. It's different for IVR, right?
Yeah.
But those basic fundamentals, does what I say make sense, and can people understand it without seeing the words? Am I breathing in a way that's disruptive, or is it supporting the delivery of the text? And am I emphasizing the bits that tell the story the best? Those things, core, fundamental. If you're not doing those things when you look at a script, you're failing the script, and you're directly impacting your ability to do your job.
Yeah. Well, then let's talk about that a little bit, because you talked about, knowing where you're going to breathe. Now, I learnt that from singing. We were always told, mark your breaths on the script.
Yeah.
So how is that what's really, really fundamental for you? Would you go in and mark your script up and go, I'm going to breathe here, I'm going to breathe here, I'm going to breathe here?
If I have to.
Yeah.
So I tell everybody when they're learning, mark up your script. 100% mark up your script, because talking breathing is really different to controlled speaking breathing.
Yeah.
And the reason, Tess, you understand this is because controlled breathing speaking has way more in common with singing than it does with talking.
Yeah.
It just is the way it is, right? Lung capacity, the amount of air that you use, the force that you apply with your breath. When you're doing controlled speaking, it's completely different to how we talk. The most fundamental difference is that when we're talking, we breathe when we need to. We talk until we run out of air, and we take a breath, whether it's in the middle of a phrase or at the end of a sentence or whatever, right? You see it with newsreaders all the fucking time, and people who like read the news on the radio and stuff. They talk and talk and talk and take a breath, and then they just keep on talking, right? And sometimes the breath is in a really disruptive place for the flow, right?
Right.
That's so interesting, because that's actually something I've had to train out of people as a speech pathologist. So people come in, and what will happen is that they use too many words for the amount of air capacity that they have. So like, say if they've got something like a vocal fold paralysis where a cord isn't closing properly, so you've got all of your air flooding out and you can't retain it in your body, I've had to work with people on how to go, okay, you can only have 6-word sentences before you need to take another breath. So what starts happening is that they start really reconfiguring the phraseology that they've got and going, okay, I can't have this big waffling, rambling sentence that goes all over the place and da-da-da-da-da. My stuff actually has to be to the point now, because I need to breathe. And what happens when people have shorter sentences is that they get talked over. So you have to be really concise and really clear, because it becomes really frustrating for a person who has a vocal difficulty or an upper respiratory difficulty of some description to then go in that direction. So it's interesting. So a lot of people moving into this are going to have to be breaking really strong habitual habits of breath.
Which is why marking your copy is so fucking vital, right? Because what you have to do, if you leave it up to your brain to decide when to breathe, it'll fall back onto your behavioural patterns. It just will, because that's what your brain's job is. And when you're in a high-risk environment and situation, which doing a voiceover for a client is, your brain perceives that as high risk. There's a lot of threat, right? You could lose the job. You could make a fool of yourself. You could fuck it up. You could not get paid. There's many risks involved with that particular kind of thing, right? So and when you're in a high risk environment, your brain defaults to patterns, because it's the safest thing for it to do, like all the time, across your entire life. That's how things happen, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to get up in the morning and tie your shoelaces or whatever, right? If you had to remember that every day, life would be shit. So patterns exist for a reason, right?
Yes.
And when you're in a threatening situation, you default to your patterns. So if you don't mark up your copy, if you don't draw a line or something like that where you need to breathe, and you rely on your brain to remember, it won't. It just won't, right?
Right.
So you mark up your copy, and then you trust the marks. And so the process is read a sentence, work out if you need to breathe somewhere in the middle of it. If you do, work out the best position to breathe so that it doesn't interrupt flow and comprehension, right? Put a mark on your script and breathe there. Test it. See if it works.
That was literally the question I was just going to ask you, is like, so what specifically do you do to mark your breaths? Like, I know traditionally a lot of people are like, oh, breathe on the commas. But I don't think that's not always true. You know
No,
what I
it's
mean? And if
not
you're
always
just
true.
only breathing on the commas, like, where are you? You must have great lung capacity. Because,
But also,
you know,
if you only breathe on the commas and the full stops, you're breathing to the written grammar.
Yes.
It might not be spoken grammar
Right.
Yeah.
that you're breathing to or reading to if you only breathe in those spots. It actually interrupts interrupts comprehension and flow, and it stops sounding natural. So if you're chasing natural reads, this is really, really, really important.
So how do you know, like, how have you trained yourself to self-direct yourself to know when it sounds unnatural? Because I feel like a lot of people struggle with that. They don't know when they hear themselves back that it's sounding unnatural. How do you get out of that?
How do I get out of, how do you get someone out of not hearing that it sounds natural or not?
I feel like a lot of people have, what I hear from a lot of people is that they have a lot of trouble directing themselves because they don't understand, they can't hear how what they're saying sounds unnatural. So how do you learn that if it's not
Get someone to show
naturally
you.
inherent for
I
me?
think what has to happen is you've got to get into a space with someone, whether it's a trusted friend, another voiceover talent, a coach, whatever, right? But get into a space with someone who can get you to make changes in the way that you're saying it. So you've got to do a bit of parroting in that kind of environment. So, for example, if Tess read this sentence, so I'm going to go back to the sentence I was reading before. Membership includes 25% off day passes for family and friends and free entry for children under 4. because there's ellipses, right? So you can hear I read to the grammar then. I did an upward inflection on the end because there were dots, right? And I only paused on the comma, okay? But it doesn't make the most sense possible. But if Tess read it that way and she couldn't get out of it, then I'd ask her to parrot me and I'd ask her to say, membership includes 25% off day passes for family and friends and free entry for children under 4. And I'd get her to copy me. Copy me, say it the way I say it, pause where I pause, do the inflections the way I do them, do the emphasis the way I do them.
Yeah.
Because what I'm doing then is building new neuromuscular pathways for that person that possibly didn't exist before.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally. And I feel like this is why one-on-one coaching for new people in voiceover is so important. Is because you need to hear someone telling you directly, okay, this is exactly what you're specifically doing wrong, and this is exactly how you specifically fix it.
Yeah. I think another fun way to get out of that as well is I used to practice it all the time when I was doing clinic work, was that I would get somebody to do something just completely wrong, like we were talking about with accent. Sometimes you can't make those slight adjustments. You can't figure out, like, to get from 1 millimeter to 2 millimeter, you're like, it's tiny. To get, 1 meter to the end of the other meter is a great way to do it. So, like, go, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to pick a random word in this sentence and I want you to stress the crap out of it.
Yes.
Did it feel right or did it feel wrong? Cool, choose the next one and give it a go.
Yeah.
Those are really interesting processes. It's, I can't remember what the actual, I think it's called negative practice, actually. I think that's just what it's called.
Pattern breakers.
Right?
Yeah. I've got
yeah.
a whole list of pattern breakers that I do with people. And one of them is like going up and down the stairs.
Yeah.
So membership includes 25% off day passes for family and friends. And then down the stairs. Membership includes 25% off day passes for family and friends. Right? It completely changes the structure of how you say the sentence, right?
Yeah.
And it rewires your neuromuscular pathways. Like it gives you like new connections. And then you have to practice them because those things perish like super fast if you don't engage with them constantly and build them up.
Yeah, I think for new voiceover artists as well, there is that fear of going, well, if I try something new and it's, what if I overstress that word? Or what if I understress that? There's such an interesting balance of being afraid and trying anyway, which I think is such a big step. And I feel like for myself as a voiceover artist, that's a step that I've kind of come to terms with in the last year or so of going, I'll fuck it up. And it'll be great, getting into that mindset.
So, like low risk, safe environments are what you need for that, right? That's just what you need. You need to be in a low risk environment where it doesn't matter if you fuck up and where you're going to get good feedback about the process that you went through, not the right or wrong, not the good or bad, but just the what happened then? What did that feel like? Do you think you can use that in another way somewhere else, right? And the creation of that safe environment's really, really, really important because you can't make those changes. You can't make adjustments in high-risk environments. Your brain won't let you. It just won't.
Yeah. What I've really personally enjoyed just recently, and maybe people listening could start doing this as well. I have a little group of other voiceover artists that live here in Auckland, and we record things, like the auditions that we've done that day for whatever reason. We play them back to each other because sometimes what happens is that they go, oh, that's interesting that you did that, and you go, oh, I did that, and I didn't even hear it. That's amazing. Yeah. Like I did one the other day where I did. Because of my background, I did 3 really beautiful tonal changes. I had a high retail, I had smooth, and then I had conversational. And tonally, they were spot on. They were beautiful. But my rhythm was exactly the same on each one of those takes. So sending in those takes, all that's really happened is that someone's going, even though I'm making those lovely tonal changes, they're hearing, oh, why did they send me 3? They sound exactly the same.
Yes.
I love doing this to you when you have this moment of, what do I say first? What do I say first? Fuck. Like,
you've overloaded her brain. Like
doing
so
this to you
much.
makes me so happy, I swear. Oh, yay. Give us your wisdom.
Yeah, there's lots of things to talk about in there. One of them is that you need to have your vocal tools on a dial and independently controllable.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's really, really important, right? So this isn't about script. This is just about vocal skill set, right?
Yeah.
But your
technical stuff, right?
Yeah, your technical stuff. You need to be able to control all of the individual tools. And that's like emphasis, inflection, pitch, like tone, tempo, like emotional content, subtext, all of the things, the projection levels,
Yeah.
all of the stuff, right? You've got to be able to dial them up and down, and you've got to do it without influencing the other stuff. And what was happening with you is you were changing some of your vocal tools, but some of them were staying exactly the same.
Yes.
So your
Yep.
prosody didn't shift. So the cadence of how you spoke, the shape of the words and the phrases stayed exactly the same between
Yeah.
all three reads, right? You might have shifted your pitch a little bit. You might have shifted your warmth. You might have shifted your pace, but the cadence remained exactly the same, right? And it's really, really important that you learn how to kind of bust out of that, because otherwise all you're doing is showing people, I can do vocal jazz hands. Like, that's what I can do. That's what I call it.
Yes, and I
vocal
hear
jazz
that,
hands,
yeah.
right? I can do like some musical theatre shit with my voice. Watch me, right? But that's all that is, and that's not storytelling. I mean,
Yes.
it contributes to storytelling, but it shouldn't be your first port of call. And this harks back to what Ashton and I were talking about earlier. Like, that's getting stuck in how should I sound, right? And what you
Yes,
did is make
yes.
decisions about how I should sound. I want to
Yes.
sound like this, I want to sound like this, and I want to sound like this, right? But you did not adjust you didn't adjust the storytelling component, because when we start to play with storytelling, we natively lean on different words. Our inflection pattern changes, and those are like the fundamental parts of cadence that you have to shift to make your reads sound different.
But having said all of that great stuff, you're still recognizing when you
Yeah.
listen to yourself that you're doing this thing that you need to change. And I feel like a lot of people don't have
even
that
recognize
yet.
that.
Don't recognize that. So I feel like that skill that you're developing first and foremost is going to really help you to break out of that rut.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
The
you've
fact
got
that
to
you
have
can
awareness
even-
first.
Right. The fact that you can even recognize that, I feel like, is a huge win, because so many people have such a hard time even getting to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel so confident sharing on here and just being like, hey, look, I'm going to tell you that this is the thing that I'm struggling with at the moment, because by being vulnerable in what you can and can't do means that other people are encouraged to do the same thing. Like, sometimes we get into these things of going, well, I'm the expert and I can do this and I can do that. No, fuck off, man. Actually, sometimes you can't, and you need to learn. And to acknowledge that you need to learn is one of the best things you can possibly do, because I'm fucking fantastic at a number of things. I'm fucking rubbish at a number of other things, and that's okay. Those are things that are really, really worth acknowledging. So thank you for pointing that out, because I think anybody listening at the moment who's at the beginning of their career or is 25 years into their career needs to acknowledge that there's still shit that you can learn.
Oh, mate, I learn new things all the time. And that for me is, I'm really interested in my craft. I want to be a master of my craft. I really, really do. It really drives me. And the craft element is what allows me to really deep dive into those intricacies. And it's what keeps me curious and interested, because I'm always on the lookout for how do I improve my craft? How do I improve my craft? How do I be better at this? And maybe that's a competitive thing. Tess often talks about how competitive she is, and I'm the same, right? Like, I want to be the fucking best, Yeah.
I think to be in a creative field and to be an actor, you have to have a little bit of that.
Have a little bit of that, right? But I'm really competing with myself. It's not an outward competition. It's a, what can I do? What can I do to make that better? How can I improve this? All of the time.
Yeah. Well, what an awesome moment to challenge our crafts
Oh, no.
and try
Oh,
a sound we can't make.
Oh, God, yes.
Okay,
Oh,
right.
Everyone loves this segment so much, and it's so genius, Tess, but it freaks me out every time.
It's a little stressful every single time you do it. Yeah, it's a little bit like, oh.
But you know what? We're allowed to fuck it up and get it wrong, because we're learning.
Yes.
That's really all I was gearing up for today, is to, when we do this one, to be like, it's okay, team, we got it wrong, because we're allowed to.
Oh, we always get this. But we never get this. That's the whole segment. Sounds we can't make.
We can't make. That's the whole point.
They're supposed to be hard. They're supposed to be challenging your range. So today...
It's justifying not being able to do it.
I think I like it collectively because we're all out of our comfort zone.
Yeah.
And being out of the comfort zone is good. And I like it because we're all simultaneously out of it, no matter we all do different things and live in different places and all that stuff. But it's quite a cool journey. It's a good learning process for all of us every time we do it.
Well, today on that learning process, we are trying Stitch from Lilo and Stitch, the little monster man.
Ooh.
He's not a monster. He's an alien, I
He's
think.
an alien. He's an
an alien.
experiment, technically.
Oh, look at you knowing all the information
I need to
about
watch
Lilo
that
and
movie
Stitch.
again.
Not just a hat rack, my friend. Not just a hat rack.
I have facts in here.
Maybe we should change that. Maybe we should say not just a headphone holder.
Oh,
Ooh.
yes, very much, yes.
Right?
yes.
So that it's like
like that.
culturally appropriate. My head is not
Sure.
just for holding headphones. There's a brain in there. It works
Totally.
sometimes.
So fun. Okay, all right. So I couldn't find a clip that just had the sounds of his voice. It has like music in the back. And there's also one other character that talks as well, but it's one of the famous lines, which is the Ohana means family bit. So we're going to have a listen. I'm going to play it into the correct spot of my mic, unlike last time, because today my mic is around the right way.
I think you've got to go back to episode,
Yeah.
season 1 to work
Go
out.
back to
Which
season
is
one.
fine. Go
Yeah.
go and listen to the other content. It's good
Go
incentive.
listen to season 1.
Because then you'll know what we're talking about.
So ridiculous, but I've got it fixed now, so that's okay. All right, here we go.
Ohana means family. Family means nobody
gets left behind.
or forgotten.
It's so good.
It's so
It's Gollum.
sweet.
It's
so
definitely
cute.
Gollum.
It's got Gollum-esque in it.
Yeah.
Hey, I hadn't
That's
thought about
interesting.
that. So what are we thinking off the bat? What are we thinking? What do we need to be doing? Yeah, Deanna.
I think it's flat tongue.
Like flat tongue and kind of up near the teeth.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause it pushes everything into that nasal space. Like,
I feel like we need to be really laryngally high as well. I think we need to compress a bit of space. So laryngally high, voice box being high. Yeah.
oh, so
Do we know?
larynx
Sorry.
up.
Yeah, larynx up.
But lifting the tongue up does that, right? Like it pulls the larynx up
Yeah,
because they're
absolutely.
connected.
Yeah.
Do we know if the voice actor who originally did Stitch's voice, if this was anyway altered post, or is this him
Ooh.
like?
I don't think
Google's
it
madly. I don't know if you heard that tap, tap, tap in the background.
I don't think it is. I think because I've heard people do replicas of
Sure.
Stitch and they've not been altered. I think I'd be surprised if it was.
I just found how to do a Stitch voice impression. Voice breakdown, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
Cheater.
You cheater!
I'm not going to listen to
Not gonna
it. I
listen.
just found it.
See, because what sort of happens naturally in my mouth as I go to do it is, Ohana.
Ooh.
Ohana means family. But I can't. All I can find is that one spot. So because you can hear in his voice, he goes, Ohana means family, and he can drop. Whereas if I'm there, I go,
It's all monotone.
Ohana means family. I can't get out of it once.
So what are you doing
there.
to get that though?
All right. So I've got. You're the funniest face. So what I want everybody to do, because this will help explain to it, is that you go like and you draw your
Like
chin.
grossness, like
yeah,
a,
you draw your
oh.
chin to your neck and slightly tilt your head down. So So you should be able to feel
Ohana means
the sides of
family.
your tongue touching the top row of teeth like a bowl.
Well, that's interesting because I did that with my tongue without doing the jaw retraction.
Yeah. That's naturally where
Sorry.
it feels.
Ohana means family.
I feel like because at the moment you feel a
Yeah.
little bit deflate. Tighten it up a little bit.
Ohana means family.
I don't know if that's
It was
right.
cute though.
It was a really cute little character voice.
Yeah.
You should keep that as a little nugget of a character voice
Yeah.
because I think that person's adorable.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Is this a cute voice?
Oh, it's so adorable. So adorable. Should we listen to it again and see
Yeah.
how we we get?
One more time.
One more time. If my phone would unlock. The troubles.
Ohana means family. Family means nobody
gets left behind.
or forgotten.
I feel like there's an accent in there as well. Like in terms of the shape, and it doesn't feel like Australian shape.
I think
which
it
is-
sounds American shaped.
Yeah. I think it comes from the same place as like if you try to do the lisp of like from like Family Guy, Mort or Neil when he goes like this and it comes from the same place as that lisp. I think if you could do that, maybe it will help. Like for example, let me try.
Yeah. Go for it.
Ohana means family. Nope, I'm still doing the.
Yeah.
Ohana means family. I can't. See,
Nasal,
if
go
I leave
nasal,
my
Ashton.
tongue there, I can't do it.
I think we're missing that nasal.
Ohana.
Yeah.
Ohana means, but I can't do the S. Ohana
Yeah, and
means,
we hear the S in there. He says,
Yeah.
Ohana means
yeah.
So my tongue's really heavily bold. I wouldn't be able to. So when I say
What
bold,
do you mean by bold?
what I mean by bold is that if you put your hand flat with your palm facing up and then sink
Cup
the
it.
palm in, yeah, that's what my tongue feels like. It feels like it's a bowl inside my mouth. So I'm going,
oh, Ohana means family.
I can't get to ease
Ohana.
because I can't move
Ohana.
that positioning.
Ohana.
Ohana means family. Means nobody gets left behind.
I get really stuck in my
You're
nose
so
and I can't
nasal.
move out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I need to, because what I did there is that it felt like my velopharyngeal port, so the flappy thing at the back of your was really closed. Maybe I need to let it open a little bit. Maybe.
I don't think I
Are
have
you
that kind of
moving-
control over my phalange lappa things.
you can gain control of that from your vela tensa palatini is the name of the muscles that live in there.
Fuck.
Yeah, man.
You just
Yeah,
said a whole
man.
bunch of stuff I don't know. So I'll-
Tensa palatini, that tensing of the soft palate.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm sure that's what it is, and if I've got it wrong, we have to check. I
Oh,
haven't looked at
okay.
those
So
words in
I
a long
know
time.
how to tense my soft palate. I can do that.
Yeah.
So
So tense soft palate for most of it, and then release the soft palate as you need to drop down.
Ohana means family.
That's much closer, I reckon. Yeah.
Ohana means family.
So I can't
Oh.
figure out how to.
you can't drop it a little bit.
Yeah.
But you've like also pushed it way up into your nasal resonators.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's all nasally.
Yeah.
Oh,
I've still got lots happening here.
Yeah. Same.
Ohana means. I know I just sound like I have a cold.
I was
got a
just
cold.
about
That's
to say
not
that.
Keep going, though. Keep going. I think the trouble here, and can I just interrupt for 1 second, right? With this process, what I see you do a lot, Tess, on your TikTok is you keep going on even if you think halfway through that you haven't gotten it quite right. You'll keep going to the end of the phrase. And I think that's really important across the board in anything that you're practicing, whether it's accents or sounds or speaking differently or any of those kinds of things. If you stop the second you make a mistake, what you do is reinforce that's the stopping point, that you can't do it past there. So you've got to say it all, even if halfway through you think you fucked it up, because you'll find your way back into it as you go, and you'll find
Yeah.
new things if you keep going.
You're finding your troubleshooting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay, well, let me try again.
Yeah, give it
Yeah.
a go. Give it a go. We'll go
Yeah,
around.
I'm going to
each
go
one
through the
each.
whole thing this time.
Yeah.
Okay. Ohana means family. Family means never getting left behind or forgotten.
It's
That
a
sounded
super
like-
cute voice.
It sounded like Jennifer
It's not
Coolidge a little
Stitch,
bit at the end, though. Or forgotten. I can't do Jennifer Coolidge, but.
or forgotten.
She's so much
This is
fun.
really interesting. I reckon this is going to need more playing.
Yeah. Yeah. What about Deanna? Do you want to give it one more run? See how it feels?
All right. So I've got to tighten my soft palate. I've got to bowl my tongue and let the back of the back of the body of my tongue lift, and the midsection of the body like curl like it's a cup, and then
Yeah.
the tip of my tongue kind of lifts a little bit.
I think so. I think the only risk in having a really strongly bold tongue, though, means you can't get variation because we can't
Yeah, so
move
it
through
has to
different vowels.
soften as we
but
go.
it has to be able to soften while keeping that backed tongue position.
Yeah. So what's
Yeah.
okay? Ohana means family. Ohana means no one being left behind. Is
Yeah,
that right?
yeah.
Okay.
Ohana means family. Ohana means nobody being left behind.
It's a little bit croaky.
It is a little bit croaky, but it's super cute.
It is adorable.
That's a-
I'm just like,
That's a character voice in and of
over here,
itself.
yeah.
And just for people listening who are interested in character voices, this is why you do this, because if you get it completely wrong and you get a different voice,
Yeah.
bang, there you go. You've got a new voice to play with. Right. Okay, let the bowl go away at some point. Maybe I could get rid of it at the beginning.
Ohana means family.
Ah, fuck, family is
Don't
hard.
stop.
Oh, sorry, I'll do it again.
Ohana means family. Family means no one gets left behind.
Yeah. It got more and more
It's
strangled as you
Oh,
went, didn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Because I'm trying to figure out how to let my tongue
Yeah,
move.
soften.
And it's, because I found the initial position and now I can't get out of it, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But it'll be well worth practicing. Well worth practicing. Well done, everybody.
So fun, so
whoa,
fun,
whoa,
so
whoa,
fun.
whoa. We didn't. Everybody didn't
Jordan.
go.
No, shit. I thought I'd
Jordan-
get
Jordan's
out
like,
of
fuck.
it. It's like the comfort zone, out of the comfort zone when you feel like you just got away with it. Like when you're in English in high school and it's speeches day and there's not enough time for you and you're the next one. Yeah, yes, I can do it tomorrow. But then you're like, no, I have to wait a whole nother day to do it. So I'm out of my comfort. No good. That's how it feels. Yeah, I got a lot of Gollum out of that. Weird. It almost sounds like a similar person who did the voice, but not that I can do it. I'll just do the Ohana means family. Let's see if I can do anything.
Go
with
for
that.
it.
Ohana means it's wrong. No,
No, don't stop.
That was the right
Just
ballpark.
do it. Just do it.
Do it again.
it's too tricky to get in there.
yeah.
Just keep
Ohana
going.
means family. There we go.
Cute.
Oh,
It was really good.
That's good.
Your first instinct on it was really strong, and then
Yeah.
your little brain noggin got in the way and told you to stop.
Yeah.
Comfort zone.
Comfort zone.
Yep.
Mate, it was so good.
Wow, that was excellent. That was excellent. Can't wait to hear what everybody else does.
Me too.
Send us in your stuff, peeps. Like, just send it in. Send it in. We want to hear you do Stitch. That'd be sick.
And I feel like there's going to be a lot of people out there and be like, okay, this is how you do Stitch. Gosh, you guys.
can't you do anything?
How do you
No,
not
we-
already know how to do this?
I'm all for it. Send us,
yeah,
send
do
us in.
that.
Show us how you do it. Show us how you do it. If you can, explain what you're doing, because that just gives everyone else a bit more access to, like, doing the same thing.
Mhm.
And learning those skills is always about your versatility, flexibility, which I bang on about all the time.
Me too.
And, finding new ways in. So, everybody, that is it for today from the Good Talkers podcast. I hope you've enjoyed our beginnings of script breakdown. Obviously, that is a massive topic. If there's something
we are
that you would.
so talking more about
Yeah,
this.
we're talking more about it. If
We
there is
barely
something.
touched the tip of what this is.
It's an iceberg. If there's something specifically you want us to talk about on script breakdown, or if you have a habit that you want to talk about, send it through. We would love to talk about it further because it's the bread and butter of being a voiceover artist, breaking down your script.
I have an idea, and
yeah?
I'm literally throwing this out here and for consideration. What if at some point we got someone to call in and we help them through a thing that they're stuck on?
I think that would be so fun.
Yes.
I
Me
actually really
too.
like that. If we could
Okay,
make
good.
that happen in some capacity, that would be
All right.
so fun.
All right. Okay.
All
Well, then here goes the call out. If you want to be on the podcast with all of us, the Good Talkers team, submit into us. Tell us your voiceover story, a fun fact about yourself, and tell us why you want to learn something new. And we will pick the best story or the person that we have enjoyed in their email, and let's bring you on and let's get you
that'd be
involved.
so
Here we
good.
go. So this is really exciting. So send us your emails, tell us what you want to learn and something that you're struggling with, and we'll bring you on the podcast. So get in touch with us across all of our socials, TikTok, LinkedIn. No, we're not on LinkedIn. That was a complete lie. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And you,
I like when the LinkedIn account gets started. I'm not
it
aware of
hasn't.
this.
I haven't endeavoured to do that. So we're not there yet. And you can email us at thegoodtalkerspodcast@gmail.com. And we would love to hear from you. We hope you have enjoyed today. We hope to hear your Lilo and Stitch, and we can't wait to have one of you on the podcast.
Oh, that's exciting,
with us.
isn't it?
Yeah, that was such a good idea. All right, love to you all. Thank you so much, and we will talk to you next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.